Okay, we've been talking all along about functions, but what the heck are functions? What are they? Well, technically, the definition of a function is a collection of ordered pairs such that, there's that word again, such that any particular value of the x is paired with only one value of the y. Okay, so the set of x coordinates we call the domain of the relation, like relationship, and the set of the y coordinates we call the range of the function. Okay, so we talked a little bit about domain and range. Who can tell me what the domain is for this set right here, M? 0, 4. Okay, what's the range? 3, 5, 7. And that 3 is pretty much redundant, right? Because we already put it in, so I don't need to put it in again. Okay, now what's the domain of N? Should have made those lines longer. 1, 3. And what's the range? -9, -2, 2, and 9. So what's happening here is this is kind of like your relationships too. The 3 that is the y in the first set is 2 timing. And that's actually okay. 3 can be the answer to every single question, and it's still a function. If you ask me a question and I always say no, 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 then I have really good boundaries. Yay me. And I'm predictable. I'm functional. But if I say yes, no, maybe, I don't know, then you're like, well, what is the answer? So the problem here with set number 2 is that when you ask the question, what is 1, the answer was 2, and it was also -2. That's a problem, because how do you choose between the two? Do you just say, well, I like 2 better, it's more positive? No. So the problem is in math, we have to have a clear answer to every question. So if you have x's repeating, that's a problem. If you have y's repeating, that's not a problem. So here your x's 1 is 2 timing, and that's not okay. X has to be faithful. We have this idea of the vertical line test, okay? If I can draw a vertical line, and by the way, this vertical line is x equals 1. That's the equation of that line. If the vertical line can only cross through one point, it means x is not 2 timing. So if I look at this, this is, yes, it's a function, because that vertical line is not crossing the graph more than once. Okay, because on a vertical line, x is infinite timing. You know what I mean? The x value is repeating over and over and over again. So it has to only cross the function once. Okay, if I draw this vertical line, what's the equation of that line? X equals -3. Is it crossing the function more than once? Yes. So does that mean it's a function? It's not a function. Okay, here I draw that line. This is, again, x equals -3. Did I cross more than once? So is it a function? No, not a function. If I cross here, this is, pretend that's x equals 3 is that line. Is it crossing the function, or is it crossing the graph more than once? So actually, I can't call it a function, can I? It's not a function. Okay, so determine if the relation is a function. This one is a function? No, no, no. All right, determine, if we look at the table, is the x value a function? Is f a function? Is there any x values that are repeating? No. So is it a function? Yes. Okay, yes, it's a function. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next set. So decide whether or not something is a function. So one example that they're giving is x equals y squared. And this is the graph right here. So if we draw that vertical line, I'm crossing it more than once. So is it a function? No, it's not a function. Not a function. And you can look at this more in detail when you get a chance, okay, just the different equation in this explanation. But essentially, if we plug in, they're saying if you plug in an x value and you solve for y, you get two different x values that give you the same y. Okay, so that's what that's saying there. Let's look at this one. This is, it looks like a parabola. So we have the graph, okay. Can I draw a vertical line and cross the graph more than once? No. So is it a function? Yes, it's a function. Yes, it's a function. And all they're showing you here is just how you could rearrange that quadratic equation and get y by itself. So that's isolating the variable. This is the same thing as y equals 4/3 x squared minus 2. Do you see how I'm going from this to that? Okay. So we can talk more about this in our next session, but are there any burning questions right now? Okay, because I'm dividing the 3 into both. Because this is saying 4x squared minus 6 divided by 3. So that means the 3 is dividing into that term, and the 3 is dividing into that term. So that's where I'm getting the 4/3 x squared, and then the 6 divided by 3 is where I'm getting the negative 2. Okay, very good question. That's going to come up in our next chapter as well. Any other questions?